Welcome to Elections 101 Cameroon, a youth-driven initiative by Local Youth Corner in partnership with the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Civic Education and the National Endowment for Democracy. The idea is to foster peaceful elections by tackling electoral violence and empowering youth through civic, moral, and entrepreneurial education. My name is Emmanuel Ayombate. Time for me to introduce my guest. He is a diplomat and a specialist in development cooperation, currently serving as Regional Operations Consultant of the European Union Intellectual Property Office, Mr. Bless Baby Abba. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bless.
Thank you, Manuel, and thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. What do you think is the role of development in peaceful elections in Cameroon?
Of course, there is a critical connection between the level of development, be it political, social, economic, and the outcome of every election. It's a trend around the world, especially in Africa. Most underserved communities, poor communities, have a history of electoral violence, and this can be explained by issues like access to education, access to healthcare, the level of social cohesion, a general understanding about the electoral process. So if you have a country that lacks some of these crucial entry points in terms of how people have access to these, critical needs, there is a great propensity that when you have an elections like the one we are facing, the outcome could be violent.
Okay, great. So what do you think will be the role of education in informing the electorate?
When we talk about education, I think the examples are wide and clear. If you know our history, it could be around Africa or even in Cameroon, you see that in communities where people had lower access to quality education, there has always been a huge spiral of violence, sometimes around inter-ethnic clashes, but more strongly around elections and the electoral result.
Yes.
I used the example in 2010 in Cote d'Ivoire. The number of people who died in Yopougon, which is a very huge underserved community, and others like in neighborhoods like Cocody, the violence was different.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for Kenya. It's the same thing for Nigeria. And even in Cameroon, if you look critically, you would see in big cities, the places where violence easily spurs out are usually in communities that have, a certain lack of access to these critical entry points, education, healthcare, social cohesion, social amenities.
So I was wondering, given that we want more people to engage, the electoral process, we want people to get out there and cast their votes, what do you think, what can communities leverage, what programs can communities leverage on to enhance their voter engagement?
I think that the advantage we have in Cameroon, it may be the same for other countries, is that the polling arrangements are made by communities. So people have to vote in places that are close to where they live.
Yes.
It means that in the same polling station, you should be able to go to the electoral register and you see your neighbors. You see people who live in the same community. This means that for every election, there is a community stake in having a peaceful election. Because the people with whom you are going to vote in the same polling station are your neighbors. They are people who live on the same street. So I think communities must first of all leverage a certain education. And when I talk about education, I'm not referring to formal education. You don't need to have a degree or a master's degree to understand the stakes of an election. Every election has national stakes. We are moving into a presidential election. It has national stakes, but it also has local stakes, community stakes. And each community must understand that if there is a violent outcome to this election, this is what we stand to lose.
True.
Because the people that we are going to attack are our neighbors. The people that we are going to fight against live in the same streets, in the same neighborhoods like us. So communities must leverage cohesion, electoral education, understanding the stakes, and to also understand that the outcome is a collective outcome.
Cohesion and the understanding of the electoral process is very primordial for communities to engage. Thank you very much, Mr. Bless. So what initiative would you propose could support the electoral process? Is there any developmental initiative that you think, if the government, puts in place to facilitate the electoral process?
Of course, they are. They may not be put in place by government, because I come from a perspective where I like to see people doing things for themselves.
Great.
Government is now involved in organizing a very huge and demanding election. They are not going to take care of what happens in every corner. But I've personally been involved. I have observed something that played out in Kibera. Kibera is the biggest underserved community in East Africa. It's in Nairobi. I don't want to call it a slum, but it comes close to that. This is a huge pothole where you have all kinds of people living together. And this community has been prone to huge slots of violence. After Kenya's political crisis in 2016, the numbers are really huge. We talk about close to 1,000 people who died only in Kibera. But these are the poorest of the poor. I have observed an approach in Kibera which I think could play out for us here. Before an election, people come together in focus groups in that community to discuss the stakes of the election. And they ask themselves, what does this mean for us? What will happen if candidate A wins? What will happen if candidate B wins? And in discussing how they are going to be impacted by that election, they somehow understand that our own stakes, local stakes, could be a lot, they are deeper, they are stronger. Attacking each other could be a problem when the electoral process is playing out maybe far and far away. So I think that's something we can replicate. When you think of communities, maybe in Douala, in Yaoundé, with a high propensity to violence, these are little actions that could be carried out. Maybe helping people to understand that the stakes of an election are wide-ranging, but we also have community stakes that could boil down to death, to destruction, for destruction that will never be rewarded.
Sure.
So I think those are angles that could be encouraged.
Wow, that was quite enriching. Before we take leave of you, Mr. Bless, are there any last words? Because the idea is actually to ensure a peaceful electoral process before, during, and even after the elections. So would you have any last words to tell our televiewers before you take
I like it when we refer to it as a process.
Yes.
You know, a process means there is a start, there is a middle, there is outing, there's an end. So people must understand that elections provide the opportunity to express themselves, for their votes to be cast, to be counted, and to make meaning in their daily lives. So first of all, we must understand that it is a duty to participate, to be part of the process, to observe the process, to learn from the process. I would like to close with Francis Bacon. Bacon said that leadership is the process of moving a people from what they are to what they can be. So if we look at an elections as a process to take us from one step to the other, it shouldn't be an end point for everything. It shouldn't be a breaking point for everything, but it should be a process that we believe in and that we participate, hoping that it helps us to get to the kind of development that we need.
Elections is an opportunity for you to express yourself, so don't stay back. We have an opportunity to change the course of our nation and the course of things in October. It's time for you to express yourself, get your voters card ready, go cast your vote when it is time, and be the change you want to see. Thank you, Mr. Bless.
Thank you very much.
See you on the next one.